The Dragon Seed storyline excels in showcasing the dragons and complex character dynamics. Emma Darcy and Harry Collett provide a human emotional core to the story on Dragonstone, and Daemon's storyline with the Riverlords finally gets the necessary payoff, while Alicent's lake scene is a standout moment.
Good. Good.
House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 7 is one of the strongest installments of the season and offers a sense of momentum heading into the end of the season. With the exception of Episode 4, The Dance of the Dragons has been a slow burn in the Game of Thrones prequel's sophomore outing, with the show content to gradually build up its storylines and character arcs, and that's not a complaint. Season 2 Episode 7, which is mostly centered around the claiming of dragons, sparks things into life, setting the stage for a fiery finale. Following on from Seasmoke's new rider in Season 2 Episode 6, this installment is focused on finding even more people who can potentially ride the unclaimed dragons in the Targaryen Civil War. It's a story that leads to some rich character work, brutal action, and moments of pure fantasy. It pays off some early decisions such as having Hugh and Ulf start in King's Landing, a change from the book, and importantly, also keeps things rooted in important figures such as Rhaenyra Targaryen and Jacaerys Velaryon. From the beginning, with Rhaenyra confronting Adam of Hull, I love how this episode reckons with the Targaryens' idea of exceptionalism and the very nature of the dragons themselves. That comes first with Vermithor, who shows why he's called the Bronze Fury as he rampages through multiple hopefuls before bonding with Hugh, and then Silverwing bonding with Ulf. It really gets into not only how dangerous and powerful they are, but also how complex they are, how wondrous and magical they truly are, and how little is truly understood about them in fascinating ways that's not been explored as much.
Well, fascinating is a word I use for the unexpected. Fascinating.
Emma Darcy once again is brilliant here. They convey so much without even needing to speak. The shot at the end of Rhaenyra looking on with the confidence, fury and power of a dragon is a perfect end note, but there's also one around 10 minutes earlier when Vermithor goes berserk that expertly conveys the horror of the situation too. A lot of praise must go to Harry Collett, who gives his best performance yet as Jace. The scene where he talks about being Harwin's strong son is powerful and devastating. Daemon Targaryen's Harrenhal visions and overall storyline have come in for some criticism, which is understandable, though I've enjoyed it for the most part. Certainly, there's a strong payoff to it this week, although I didn't quite expect so much of that to come from Oscar Tully, with Archie Barnes holding his own against Matt Smith. It's a great scene for Daemon, especially because he's not the one in control, a position he's not used to outside his visions and doesn't like, and works well for getting his story in the Riverlands back on track. I liked seeing Paddy Constantine return as Viserys in Season 2 Episode 6, but do feel like revisiting that this week was unnecessary. I'd have rather had the time spent with Daemon in reality or extending other scenes, since this doesn't add much and treads very familiar ground, but it's brief enough that it doesn't hurt things too much. Hopefully that's the last of his visions, because the reality of Daemon's story should allow him to really push forward now. There's not quite as much King's Landing drama this week, with the heavier focus on Dragonstone, but what we do get is still very good for the most part. Olivia Cooke is great once again as Alicent Hightower, and I'm a big fan of her lake scene. It's the kind of thing that could easily have been left out, but it showcases so much about the character. It perfectly demonstrates her attempts to cleanse herself, building on her saying nothing is clean earlier in the episode, while also trying to find a sense of freedom for the first time. I also really like the growing dynamic between Larys Strong and King Aegon, which has had excellent scenes in consecutive weeks. I'm glad Aegon is gradually more active and aware, as it allows for more of the performance from Tom Glencarney, one of this season's MVPs. These kinds of conversations and machinations remind me a lot of Game of Thrones, and that House of the Dragon doesn't come off looking bad from that comparison is impressive. Overall, it was an episode with a few small gripes. The depiction of how much distance and time passed with Aemond and Vhagar chasing Ulf and Silverwing was questionable at best. Having another Corlys Velaryon and Alan of Hull conversation in the exact same shipyard had me begging for them to have a conversation literally anywhere else. I assume this was done to ease production, but it stands out. However, the good certainly outweighs the bad, and hopefully this means House of the Dragon Season 2 is ending on a very strong note.
This is amazing! How did you get so strong?
As is tradition, the pros. The sowing of the dragon seeds is brilliantly done, especially as a showcase for the dragons. Emma Darcy, Harry Collett and more cast members on Dragonstone help provide a human emotional anchor for the story. The payoff of Daemon's story with the Riverlords is what his story needed. Alicent's lake scene is wonderfully played by Olivia Cooke and conveys a lot of her character, and King Aegon and Larys Strong have become one of the show's most fascinating duos. And the cons, of which there are few. Daemon having another vision of Viserys was unnecessary, and Corlys and Alan's story continues to feel repetitive.